Okay, welcome back. We had a slight glitch, so we're trying this whole thing all over again for the third time.
Third time.
Thanks for your patience.
No problem. You're patient with me, I'll be patient with you.
So welcome, Harold.
Hello again.
Who narrates a number of Tyche books. Once again, tell us all about yourself.
Sure, my life story. So I am a musician. I'm currently in my 5th year of study at the University of Calgary. I play quite a lot of instruments. I play clarinet, bass clarinet's my main one. I play trumpet and a bunch of other stuff too. So music, I work also at Heritage Christian Academy in Calgary and a studio in the northwest of Calgary, the Beat of Music. It's one of the oldest schools in Calgary. Teach private lessons, do clinic type stuff. So I'm a musician / teacher kind of thing, and a voice actor when I'm not doing that.
Cool. So we're going to go back to the beginning and tell us how you came to join us, because we originally said no.
Yeah. So Tyche originally sent a message out to the University of Calgary Drama Society. I have a minor in that, and they were looking for voice actors at the time to record an audiobook. I think it was Steam and Stratagem or something like that. Anyway, it was a female narrator was what they were looking for. Obviously, I'm not a female narrator. And so they initially turned me down, but I said, keep me on the list. And so then a couple months later, about 4 months, I think, they said, okay, we're looking for a male narrator this time. If you'd like to give it a shot, come meet us. And so I did, and they liked me, so they kept me on, and they still like me, so I'm still working here.
So you have done full voice acting and just narration. You've said you prefer full voice acting. How do you prepare for full voices?
So for full voices, what I'll do is I go through, I'll skim through the book, read through it first of all, just get a general idea of how the story goes. And then I'll kind of come up with some ideas of character voices. If there's anything in the book specifically, I'll make a note of that. So in the book I'm narrating right now, that's Much Ado About Macbeth. The couple of the characters have specific descriptors of their voices in the book, so I'll make note of that. Then I'll go and I'll interview the author of the book, so in this case Randy McCharles, and see if they have any ideas. He was really easy. He said just take it and run with it. And then basically I'll go through, and once I have a general idea what the author wants, what I have a general idea as well, I'll go through and come up with pretty solid ideas, and then test them out and see if they'll work and whatnot. So that's the actual voices of it. Still acting. It's like even if I wasn't doing voices, if I was just doing straight narration, I still go through and figure out any subtext or anything that the characters are referring to or meaning to say, even though they're saying something else. That's all part of the acting part of things. That happens either way. Just with the voice acting, I have to do that underneath changing their voices too. So it's pretty straightforward.
So what is your sound system setup? What do you do when you're narrating?
When I actually get to the actual job of narrating. So I record onto my computer. I have a MacBook Pro from a while back. And I record into Audacity, so that's my software. And I use a Snowball Blue microphone. So I'll set up the computer, so I've got it set up behind the microphone so I can see the screen and everything. And then I'll load up Audacity and the book. So I've got it on EPUB and I've got it on PDF. Use them interchangeably depending on what I'm doing. And then what I'll do is I usually sing a little bit just to kind of warm up my voice, and then I'll go through and I actually highlight the different characters in different colors so that I know which voices I'm doing for which character. And then I'll also go through for this one in particular. I haven't done it for the 2 I have published already, but for Much Ado About Macbeth, I'll go through and any of the little interjections like Paul said or Susie said, if they're not super necessary, Randy said to take them out, kind of do it more as an audio or radio play. So I'll go through that, take out any of those, and then I'll go through and just read without the narration, just the voices of the characters, to get a general idea of what, where my voice needs to go, what it needs to do to be able to do everything smoothly. And then I'll go back and check anything that's problem spots, and then I actually then hit record, and then go through and record the chapter like that. So it's a multi-step process. It takes a bit of time, but it hopefully would make the recording part a little bit easier. Usually I only get it done. Usually only have to take one take.
Usually.
Yeah.
And this being your third one, there's actually fewer errors, I noticed.
Oh, okay. Good. I would hope that.
Although with Randy's book being a cast of thousands, keeping track of who's who in the voices.
Yeah.
Is...
That is definitely tricky. I made a list when I started the book to keep everything organized and listed all the characters. There's 53, I think, in the book that I'm recording now, different voices that I have to do. So the ones that are the big important ones, they're pretty obvious. I can memorize them pretty quick right off the top. Some of the other ones, what I'll do is I'll record myself, just sit down and just talk in a couple different voices, try to find something, solidify it. Once I find something that I'm happy with, then I'll just talk in that for a couple of minutes, get myself used to it, and then record myself. So then when I go into a chapter that has, Mrs. Kennedy from 10 chapters earlier, who we've never heard from since, then I can go back and check the recording and kind of match my voice back to that and have that kind of reference for myself.
Yeah, I find in editing, even I'll go, okay, I haven't heard that person since 2 chapters before, and is that what they sound like? So I have to go back to the previous chapters. And yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Usually you're right.
Good.
But, yeah, and that is one of the things we find when we're editing is sometimes we do forget who's actually talking.
Yeah.
And then I have to send it back and go, no, do it in this person's voice instead.
Yeah, do it in the proper voice. Yeah, for sure. I do my best to try to avoid that. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I did in my first book, which was Heritage by David Craddock, was I would read the character voice correctly and do everything fine, but then say the wrong person said it.
Yes.
So I don't know if I'm reading too far ahead as I'm going, and the next person that's supposed to speak is the one that I say said it. So I don't think I got too many of the voices mixed up, but I got a lot of the taglines backwards.
So being how it's more work, why do you prefer full voice acting over just narrating?
I prefer full voice acting, I think, for a couple of reasons. I like the challenge of it a little bit more. I did Flashback by Simon Rose, just straight narration, no voices. It was a lot simpler, but I didn't feel like I got into the book as much. So I find I get a little more involved with the book. And I also, as someone who listens to audiobooks, I prefer listening to ones that have that voice acting element to it. Part of the big book series that really got me into this thing was Inkspell or Inkheart, the trilogy there. So I listened to them all three of those books on audio, and they were all done full voice acting. I thought it was super, super cool. So yeah, it's a bit more challenging, but I think I get into it more, and I would hope that the listeners get into it more as well. Kind of creates more of a realistic situation, I guess, as realistic as it can be.
Okay. This actually seems to be working. I'm so happy.
Yes.
So far.
If you came for the first one, it was totally different. I was at my house, and now I'm not.
Yes, which will be deleted. I'll take them offline completely. So is there anything you want to impart to people? Because we've discussed who you are. We've discussed your setup. We've discussed the books you're doing. Right now you're doing What to Do for Randy with his cast of millions.
Yes.
Is his harder because there's so many voices?
Definitely. I think that's the thing that's slowing me down the most is I want to make sure, especially because as you go through the book, you introduce characters, and I want each voice to be unique enough that it stands out, but also within my vocal range and still be able to do it easily. And there's a lot of characters in his book that are very iconic, I guess would be the way to say it. So for those situations, I have to make sure that the voice is something that people are going to want to listen to. And so with so many of the main characters, I think right now I'm about 5. I'm not even halfway through the book, but there's about 5 main characters that interact a lot. And so they have to be contrasting enough. And so I have to choose voices. I think that's one of the biggest reasons that that's so difficult. It's a really well-written book, but there's just a lot of characters in it.
And some of them you'll find as you go along. Well, you won't know this, but Randy and I know personally. He's just real people. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to how you do their voices.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I met when I did the interview with him back in early November. I met one of the characters from the book, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the name matched the character in the book, but kind of an odd experience to go, oh, this is someone that made it into the book. And yeah, he explained that a little bit. Some of his friends are actually in the book. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting. I hope it's comical for you guys.
No, it will be. And Randy's easy to get along with. So
yeah, he's a nice guy.
So how do you find dealing with female characters?
Definitely challenging. You haven't noticed, I've got a really low voice. So female characters are definitely the bane of my existence. Depending on which kind of character there are. There are three characters in Much Ado About Macbeth. I don't want to spoil much, but there are 3 characters in it that are old hags essentially, and their voices aren't so bad. Like they're kind of so extreme that I can really get away with that. The normal female characters, that's a bit of a challenge. So
it wasn't Heritage for you too.
Yeah, Heritage was tricky. There was quite a few, not a ton, but there was definitely a few female characters that came up, and when they do, they're really important. So what I do is I try to get rid of as much of the bass frequencies in my voice, the overtones, anything. So I talk higher in my voice, try to get as feminine kind of sounding of a voice that I go, and then try to push it up just a little bit more, but not so much that I can't go higher or lower, so that I can still have
a distinct
still have emotion in the voice as well. With Heritage, it wasn't so bad because each of the characters come from a different area of the whole world of Crotaria, and so they each had a different accent. So that helped. I could have the same voice with a different accent, and it would still come across as slightly different. So that was enough that I could work with that pretty easy. This one, Much Ado About Macbeth, has the main character Paul has a wife, Sylvia, and a daughter, Susie. And so because they're all in one family, I try to keep the voices somewhat similar. So I've got Susie's voice. Susie's voice is, Dad, come on, gotta do this, like So very high, and then his wife's same kind of thing, but a little bit more, kind of more of a mature voice, something like that. So I don't try to come across as being completely female. It's obvious I'm a male, so I hope when you listen to the book, you're like, it still sounds like a guy, because it is a guy. So, but I try to make it so it's obvious that it's not a male there. So yeah, but definitely that would be the most challenging thing. I do accents, I do male characters, I can do lots of other things, but female voices are the challenging part for sure.
And lisps, that one character with the lisp.
Yes.
First time I heard it, I went, okay.
Yes.
It was interesting.
Lisps. So there's one character in Much Ado About Macbeth. Her name is Gertrude. She's very deformed, and so I wanted to try to get that into her voice as well, and so she speaks with a lisp. But she's also Scottish, so there's a Scottish accent and a lisp, and it just gets really ridiculous. And she uses a couple funny words too. She says shtick at one point, and so it comes across as shtick. So yeah, I have fun with that one.
And how do you do names? I know, like, Randy's isn't too bad because it's,
Yeah.
But authors often make up their own words.
Yes, that is true. In Heritage, there was a lot of made-up names. So when I read through the book the first time, I'll make note of anything that's kind of I'm not sure about. So there's one character, Simon Rorden, in Much Ado About Macbeth, that it's spelled with an I, and I thought it was Riordan and a whole bunch of different stuff. So if I can catch it, I'll check with the author and I'll see, how would you pronounce it? Randy's really easy. He says, if you pronounce it differently than I do, that's fine. So just do it however. There's one character named Gemma in Much Ado About Macbeth, but it's spelled Gemma. And so he said I could do it as Gemma, but because he pronounces it as Gemma, I decided to just go with Gemma. With Heritage, though, it's a made-up land of Crotaria. There's different areas. There's Tyrell, Leastone, Darinia, and...
Oh, your memory's amazing.
Yeah. I live in the book, so I get it in my head. So, yeah, those areas, I checked with David when I did an interview with him. I did that through Skype because he lives in Utah or Ohio.
New Zealand.
New Zealand, or wherever.
Wrong continent entirely.
Okay. So I did an interview with him and then checked with him for a lot of the stuff like that. There's Carlton is one of the characters too, and it's spelled fairly easy. And he wasn't too bad. He said it's pretty much phonetic spelling, but checked with him. And then as I go through the book, if I come across a word that I'm like, what do I do here? I just sent him an email and said, do I do this? And then spell it as phonetically as I can. And then he would respond back and say, yeah, pretty much like that. So
you can also, I know one of our narrators contacted, and the author did a small sent them a small MP3.
Oh.
They did their own voice and said, this is how it's pronounced. So
okay.
It's just a suggestion for the future.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I haven't had any issues that are really weird names or really weird pronunciations. I did run into the thing in Heritage, actually. They have, he referred to some soldiers, so lieutenants. In Canada, they're called lieutenants, but because he's not Canadian, he wanted it pronounced lieutenant. So there are sometimes those pronunciations where it's just the vernacular of the area that I'm from are slightly different than what the author would say. So, but yeah, I just talk with the author lots. Usually have good contact with them. So
yeah, when we edit books, we always find ourselves adding U's to a lot of the words because it's like color and
right. Yeah.
American versus Canadian, similar idea.
Yeah, Canadian's better.
I can't argue with that one.
There we go.
Okay, well, we've been at this a little bit now. Is there anything you want to specifically add or say, or maybe some hints, tips, and tricks that you might give budding narrators? Or
budding narrators. Well, I'm not an expert.
No, but you are on your third book.
But I am on my third book, so I've done it for a bit. So for anyone who's wanting to start out in this industry, the single thing that threw me off the most when I started was actually just getting used to hearing my own voice. A lot of people will hear themselves and think this is really weird because you hear slightly different than what comes out of your mouth. So I would just sit down in front of a microphone and record yourself for a while and listen back and hear how that works and learn how to sculpt your voice, getting character voices and whatever based on what you hear back, not what you hear in your head. Because that's obviously what other people are going to be hearing. That was the thing that threw me off the most. Then other than that, I would say just get to know what you're comfortable with, see what you can do with your voice, see what's more comfortable for you. For me, when I started Heritage, I didn't even set out originally to do voices, but once a character came into the book, it just kind of flowed naturally from me, and so I just kept going with that. So figure out what's your forte, what's more comfortable for you. If you stick more with just narration, go for it. Just go with that. See what your voice can do, see what you can do comfortably, and see if you can extend that. See if you can extend your range, see what you can do with your voices. Other than that, I would say maybe get some acting lessons, because it isn't just reading a book. You do have to do some acting and figure out how the characters would say something. The narration is a little more straightforward, but you do have to keep everything kind of in your head. So if you don't have any training at all, it might be a bit tricky. So I've done some of that, some stage acting. I've done some acting on YouTube, actually, and some other stuff like that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing would be just to get a microphone and record yourself, hear yourself back, and try different things, see what you're comfortable with, and have fun with it. That's I guess what I would have to say.
And it's not something you have to spend a lot of money to get into, because there's
No.
good free programs like Audacity.
Mhm.
The microphone, you might want to look at a half
Yeah.
decent one.
Yeah, depends on the type of microphone you have at the beginning. When I started, I did my first 2 books actually just off of the microphone that comes in a MacBook laptop. Worked fine. I've upgraded since then, but honestly, the microphone I have was $70, and for Audible, for what it does, it's totally fine. Great microphone. I don't have to do any equalization or anything like that. But yeah, go out
I
there.
do that in post.
Yeah, she's the one that makes me sound good. So yeah, just for, if you want to try stuff, just get a microphone. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, if you want to get into something, I would definitely invest in something a little bit more professional. But there's no reason you have to spend $1,000 on a microphone. And yeah, Audacity is free. So yeah, the only expense that I've shelled out for this job would have been the microphone, $70. So yeah, it's really easy industry to break into. Getting a job though, I can't give any tips. That kind of just happened for me. But yeah, I think if you're doing what you're doing with the best of your ability, and you just throw everything you can into it, someone will notice you.
Okay, so if people want to stalk you, don't freeze up computer. Where can they go? How can they do that?
I don't have anything set up now. I do have a Twitter. It's oatmeal_cookies with a Z. I might set up a website. I don't know. We'll see.
Meanwhile, if you really want to talk to them, just send an email to the Tyche email.
Totally. And yeah,
if it goes forward.
Yeah, if you want to send me an email or you want to contact me, I'm more than open to talking to anyone. I'm not super busy.
Why oatmeal cookies?
Oatmeal cookies. Well, that started a long time ago. That was I forget what it was. It was a game a long time ago, and there was a bot randomly created that had a name, Oatmeal Cookies, and I thought it was just really funny. And so I stuck with it, and that's just kind of become my screen name. So that's my picture on my Gmail account, and it's my YouTube account name, Oatmeal Cookies 007, stuff like that. I just kind of stuck. And actually, it was kind of funny. I met Andrea Libman, who's a voice actor who does the voice of Pinkie Pie in My Little Pony. And there's a line in that show where she says, "Oatmeal, are you crazy?" And it's just in the middle of this conversation. It just stuck out. It was really funny. And so when I met her, I said, I use Oatmeal Cookies as my screen name for everything. And so when she gave me her autograph, she said, "To the real Oatmeal Cookies." It was kind of cool.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for those who put up with our computer issues.
Yes.
And we look forward to your next book from us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing it up. It's a big one, but I think it'll be fun.